recording has started. Please let the person on the other end know about avoid legal snags and so forth. So we're going to go ahead and start the podcast on a countdown. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Mud, Liberty, and Stuff podcast. I'm your host, Paul Shin. Hello. And I am very excited for my guest today. Very, very excited to have this individual. I'd like him to introduce himself, and then we're going to get started with the podcast.
Hey, it's Larry Sharpe. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me, brother.
All right. Well, and just for those of my listeners that don't know who Larry Sharpe is.
Who doesn't know who Larry Sharpe is?
I don't know.
God,
really, seriously.
People living under rocks? What's going on here?
Well, Larry Sharpe, just involved in politics, involved in business, very well known in my circle of friends in the state of New York. I have family that live in New York that voted for you, by the way, in 2018. Thank you. But Larry Sharpe ran for governor in New York in 2018 against Cuomo. And he was something that really gets me is the term grassroots. And
that's very true. Yes.
Visited all 62 counties. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The glory of the campaign was several fold. Number one is I was able to raise about $500,000 as a third party libertarian candidate, which is crazy for third parties.
Right.
Second, I was able to build a team of hundreds of people, not only in New York State, but across the country, so that now they could assist others in how to run a real campaign. Third, I crossed the entire state, all 62 counties, and New York State only had about 16 local county affiliates out of 62 counties. Now we have over 30. So we've over doubled. We more than doubled, over doubled. That's a new word I just made up. We've more than doubled the over doubled, the new word. So we've more than doubled the number of county affiliates in our state, which is great. And then after I ran in 2018, getting us ballot access so that we could now run throughout the state, the next year I crossed the state again, all 62 counties, one more time, again, reinforcing how we can build out our local communities and supporting local candidates. So we got 103 victories in 2019. Yes. So 103 people now have a libertarian name, Libertarian Party logo by their name across our state, all local, right? Local this, local that. We didn't get any state level or any national level, obviously, but local is how it's supposed to work, right? That's the grassroots that you talked about, right? That was the entire goal. Absolutely. The top of our ticket is the one that gets the press, and I got lots of press running for governor. Mm-hmm. I then took that press and then gave it to the bottom of the ticket, which has the best chance of victory. When you combine local with press, you get victories. It's what I've been saying for years. So I just put into practice and it actually worked. Sadly, not enough states are following that model, but it is the model because we went from absolutely zero libertarians for the past 40 some odd years in New York State to 103 in 1 year.
0 to 103. That's better than a Mustang off the line.
That is correct. Yes, absolutely. So that's what we're trying to achieve.
Right. So for our listeners that may just start out by listening to the Larry Sharpe episode here, the premise of my podcast is I talk to whoever I want to talk to for the reasons I want to talk to them, but it's people that I respect and I enjoy talking to them, or it's someone that I put in very high regard. But also I ask one question, and I haven't really asked a question yet, but here's my question. Larry, what keeps you up at night thinking about personal liberty? What makes you not be able to sleep?
You just told me thinking about personal liberty, so I guess that's it.
Right. Yeah, that's my question about and regarding personal liberty. What is the thing that specifically that keeps you up at night?
It is the idea of post-industrial leadership, and it's going to be very odd, I know. The models that most countries are still working on, and sadly still even in America, is an industrial leadership mindset. An industrial leadership mindset is a factory mindset, right? Our education system is that way. In many cases, our entertainment system has been that way. And that is the idea that every individual is simply a cog in the machine. So get that cog to work harder, faster, get to do what it's supposed to do better. Listen to what I'm telling you. Don't move, and my factory works better. That model was very good in the beginning of the industrial age. It began to fail at the end, and now it doesn't work anymore. Post-industrial leadership isn't about the machine working more efficiently in that regard. It's not about labor anymore, if that makes any sense. It's not about my arms and legs. That I can easily buy overseas, and or I can automate in some way, shape, or form. What I need is innovation. What I need is initiative. What I need is imagination. What I need is someone caring enough to make sure that when things change, and things change so quickly in today's world, that they're able to adapt. I need flexibility. We see it with the coronavirus. We see it with everything new. We see it with trade. I need flexibility. How do I get someone to give me their brain, not their body? I want their body, obviously, but I can get it someplace else. What I need more is their brain. How do I get them to give me that initiative, that imagination? Well, they have to care, which means they have to have ownership of the job. They have to they have to want to do it. Ownership is what liberty is about, but something else, volunteerism. They have to want to do it. If they're just doing what I say, they will do exactly what I say. And when things change, they won't change anything. And they'll say, boss, I did what you said, and walk away, and we'll have failure. That happens all the time. The only way for us to succeed as a nation, as a company, as a family, as an individual, is for us to have ownership of our bodies, ownership of our lives, ownership of our careers, ownership of our jobs. And I mean that mentally, emotionally. Even if I don't physically have ownership of my job or career, I have to emotionally believe that I do, because then I'll act appropriately. Not just that, the odds of me being successful shoot up, and the odds of me being promoted shoot up, and the odds of me being a partner one day shoot up. All the odds of success just shoot up if I have that personal ownership and that idea that I am volunteering. One of the first things I do when I talk to people about their positions or their jobs is I ask the idea is, do you think you're trapped here? If they think they're trapped, they're in trouble. You can't be trapped. You've got to believe that you are, that you have the option of packing up and leaving. The thing to remember for me, more than most people in this liberty movement, is most people came because of politics. I didn't. I came from the business side, right? I've been teaching post-industrial leadership for 10, 15 years already. And I was basically like, I don't care about politics anymore. It didn't work for me anymore until I heard Gary Johnson speak. And Gary Johnson, for a lot of people, wasn't the guy who brought them in 2012, but he brought me in specifically because he was a business person, so I could hear him. He was an entrepreneur like I was. I could hear. The rest I couldn't really hear because they were politicians, and I didn't hear them. A lot of people came in because of Ron Paul or because of Harry Brown, but these people were politicians in my view, so I couldn't hear them. Now I hear them, and I go back and I can hear them, but Gary Johnson was the one who brought me in. So I come at this from a business point of view, and people often tease me and say, Larry, you speak really well about libertarian principles, and you haven't been in the movement that much. Well, because I've been teaching it for 15 years. So, yeah. But
you just didn't have a label. You
didn't
have a label put on yourself.
I had a label. It was a post-industrial leadership, but it wasn't libertarianism, but they're the same thing.
Right. It's interesting you talk about volunteerism. I really believe I have a friend here in town, and he's going to be a guest on the podcast soon. His name is Clyde, and Clyde ran for a state representative here in Indiana in 2018. And two of the things that he wanted really badly was he ran on a platform. I'm not quoting him, but he ran on a platform of no. If it involves spending one tax dollar, the answer is no, which I really, really respect the heck out of. And number two, it was, of all the states, I know we're not the only one, but our state doesn't pay really well for its teachers. And he started a camp. Huh?
Mine does.
Yours pays well.
Yes. I'm in New York State. Our average teacher makes $80,000 a year. Okay.
Not in Indiana. Indiana, you're talking about $35,000 a year. 35 to 40. So he said, well, what if we, just in our county alone, what if we start a PayPal group and just have families give what they can? And all that money will be set up, and we will then diverge it to every single teacher within the county. So if we make $1,000, we divide it by the number of teachers, and they get that much money. And that is the money that is voluntarily given to them because we feel as though they deserve it. And that's an example, at least locally, of something where someone has said, well, we can voluntarily do that. Giving to food banks, being involved and engaged in giving back, especially right now. I'm involved with Salvation Army. And with the Salvation Army, people pluses and minuses. I realize it's a religious organization, but what they do with in my local area is they provide these things called bags of hope. They're for people that are shut in, that can't get out and go to the grocery stores themselves, and especially during COVID-19 era, which we're in right now, what is this, day 35 or something like that, they can't get out. So these bags of hope are 25 pounds of food, and we go and deliver them and set them on their front doorstep, ring the doorbell, and leave. And that is, and from that perspective, I'm volunteering my time. I'm willing to give back to the community. I don't want a pat on the back. I'm telling people now, but I don't want a pat on the back. I do it because I care about people in my community. I don't want to see anyone struggle. And if more people were to get involved, we would have less problems.
Well, there are several issues. You brought up a lot of stuff. Let me try to go through a couple of those.
Sure.
But they're all related in one important way. Whenever you add government, you by default remove community. That's how that works. And we've spent so many, literally decades, adding government that we've basically removed community in most communities. So the people now who are younger have almost no concept of community doing something without government because they simply haven't seen it, right? Even community groups are often sponsored by local government. So we have a culture that is really not about community. So we have to change that culture. But the other problem is, if you run on a platform of no, if you do, the problem, while I love the concept, the average American says, well, then what, right? There's no answer. If the average American only sees government as the only answer and as nothing else, when you say no, what they hear is, you're going to leave me with nothing. Now, I know that's not what your friend is saying. I get that. I understand that completely, right? I'm on the same page as him. But most Americans aren't. And as you can see, the COVID crisis has shown us that most Americans are happy with government locking them away. They're not just okay with it, happy with it, totally fine with it, and then looking for government to give them even more. When you have that kind of culture and environment, just saying no is scary. If you remember when I ran, what I always talked about was not actually cutting any or stopping any program first. It was always creating another option. Breaking government monopoly was my goal. If you break government monopoly and allow people to select a non-government option, then that becomes the norm in their community. It changes the culture. Once that happens, I have no problem saying no, because another community option is now available for them that they will voluntarily take, that they will voluntarily fund on their own. And as that begins to happen, now we're rocking and rolling. But the second piece is, if you provide multiple options, some of those voluntary options are going to suck. Some are going to be failures. Some are going to be corrupt, just like government. Some are going to be that way. But over time, the corrupt ones should at least go away, or at least we'll know that they're corrupt. And the bad ones, people will stop using because the consumer decides which ones they use. My plan tends to be a more longer term plan because I just see how our culture is. Remember, I live in New York City. I live in the belly of the beast.
Right.
I live in a communist city, right? So I see 8.5 million Americans sitting here, or New Yorkers, not all Americans, but New Yorkers who are sitting here just accepting this like it's okay, the norm. So I'm trying to look at where I am and try to make that shift into the best of my ability. The second thing I want to try to do is, volunteerism is awesome. I love it. The issue is the federal government has a lot of control over teachers, over education, over everything local because of the way they fund it, which means as we begin to voluntarily do things, our voluntary actions are not going to be as effective because the federal government is propping up the bad ones. So
Right.
the first step is to get federal government out of our world, right? Pull the federal government out so that now those local ideas can actually work, right? The local ideas are going to struggle if the federal government's pumping money into a bad idea next to it. So we got to pull that out first. Then the local can work. You also brought up the idea of a religious organization. I'm not particularly religious, but it doesn't really matter. My point is, as long as it's voluntary, it's okay. For lots of Americans, religion is part of their life. For some Americans, it's a serious and very important, critical part of their life. As long as it's making them good people doing good things, what do I care? Enjoy your religion. It's in our First Amendment, right? Literally, it's part of the
Absolutely.
First Amendment. If you want to be religious or non-religious or anything in between, or you want to be a Christmas Day Christian, or you want to be an everyday in church Christian, or you want to be a super Orthodox Jew or whatever, whatever's your thing, or nothing. I never want to go to anything ever.
Right.
Whatever. If it makes you a good person, I'm fine. I remember there was a guy who called me probably 2 years ago. He said, Larry, I got a problem. He was a state chair. I don't want to say what state, but he was a state chair. And he goes, I got a problem. I got a great candidate. He's a great guy. And he wants to run for whatever office. It's like a state office or something. And I said, great. What's the problem? He said, he's super religious. I said, okay. What's the problem? He said, no, he's really super religious. I said, okay. Is he saying that he wants to pass a law to make everybody super religious? He said, no. He's not about that. He wants people to convert because of him. I said, because of his example. He goes, yeah. I said, so what's the problem? Well, he's religious. I said, so what? It doesn't matter if he's religious or not. The question is, does he want to force his view on others? If he says, no, I'm not about forcing my religion on others. I want people to come to my religion because of my example in my community.
Mm-hmm.
That's normal. That's your freedom of speech. You can do that. I can want someone to be my religion. Nothing wrong with that. I just can't force them to be my religion. Not just that. You told me that the guy is a good guy. He said, yeah, he's a great guy. I said, religion is part of who he is. Why would you want to take that away from him if that's part of what makes him a good guy? Now, if the religion makes him a jerk, then I get it, right? Because some people are religious and they're jerks. I got that, right? That person, I'm with you. Get them out of there. But if the person's not a jerk and that's part of who they are, what do I care? Enjoy.
It makes them more. It makes them. It's part of their fabric of who they are. If that's strong in their lives.
Absolutely.
You brought up a good point about New York State and about changing things. And I listened to a podcast of yours. I want to say it was back before the election in 2018, and you were talking about the toll bridges coming into the city, and you were talking about
$18 one way.
Privatizing them. And I was like, yeah, 18, believe me, I do work in New York State and have in the past. And I know, but my company pays those tolls. But thinking of how many people I saw on the roads going into Long Island, for example, and how long it took them, how many people every day, both ways, at least once each way.
Yep.
And then hearing that you said privatization, and I went,
I did not say privatization.
Well, okay,
did not say that. No.
What if
words matter, my friend?
Yes, they do.
Privatization.
Can you explain? It was
everybody away.
It wasn't privatization. It was what was it?
Leasing naming rights.
Leasing naming rights. Thank you.
That's correct, and that phrase really matters. If you say privatization, you will turn at least half of your audience off immediately. They will not hear any word that you say after that. And I know libertarians get mad at me, but that's what it is. I don't care what the word means. I care how the word feels. I am trying to change hearts and minds. Your dictionary term is irrelevant. What matters is how that word feels. And they have taken the word privatization and demonized it. So stop using it. It's not working. I don't use that phrase at all. And it isn't actually what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is I want the state has paid for those bridges 45 times over.
Right.
So we're keeping the asset, right? I'm a business guy. I'm not getting rid of my assets. I'm keeping my asset, right? All I'm going to do is lease the naming rights to the asset. So the bridge or bridges, there are over a dozen bridges and tunnels in New York City just alone. The bridge or tunnel that we have, I'm not going to give away. I keep the asset. All I'm going to do is lease the naming rights. So now the bridge that usually costs whatever $18 to cross, instead of it being the George Washington Bridge or the Verrazano Bridge, or sadly in my state, the Mario Cuomo Bridge, which I just want to say it. Any case, any of those bridges, now it becomes the 3M Bridge or the Kellogg's Bridge or the Colgate Bridge or the Verizon Bridge or whatever. And they put the name on the bridge, and they now have the naming rights for that bridge. They can put a big sign on it saying Verizon Bridge, all good. All the signs go there. Google Maps pops up Verizon Bridge or 3M Bridge or whatever the case may be. And now they have that. Now you're saying, Larry, why would someone pay for that? Why in the world would they pay for a bridge like that? And I said they'll pay over $100 million a year for it. People thought I was crazy. Then all of a sudden they realized companies drop $20 million a year on a football stadium that gets used on the weekends half a year. I'm saying $100 million for a bridge that is literally gets mentioned on the radio dozens of times every single day, on TV dozens of times every single day during rush hour, morning and afternoon, in a 16 million metro person area every single day. Yeah, they'll pay for that. Not just that, the people who physically cross the bridge and see the actual signs, right? 1 million at least a day. Every day, 1 million. We'll see it every single day. Not just that. How about all the media that is done in New York City? Every time there's a skyline in a movie or in a commercial, all those things. Well, your name's on the bridge. You just got product placement for free. So yeah, they'll easily. And how do I know that? Bankers started talking to me about that after I talked about it. Bankers came to me saying, Larry, how long's the lease? What were you thinking? It has to be at least a 10-year lease because it takes at least 2 years for the culture to shift the name, right? If the name was the Bob Jones Bridge, it's at least 2 years for culture to start calling it the 3M Bridge. So you're losing a couple years up front, right? And then eventually the culture starts calling it the 3M Bridge for the next 8 years, whatever the case may be. So that's how you have to have a longer bridge, a longer lease. But more importantly, right, I'm only leasing the naming right. Part of the naming right lease includes maintenance. So they have to make sure we have maintenance. So the state or the city still inspects the bridge. So you're inspecting the bridge. If it's not the code, you could actually lose the contract. So of course they're going to keep the bridge up to code. Not just that, if the Verizon bridge collapses, oh my God, Verizon looks terrible. So they have a vested interest for it not to break down, and we will still keep maintenance as part of the deal. So now you have the bridge being paid for and maintenance covered. Why do you need tolls? No need for tolls. Tolls go away. So now the average person saves money, and we've just lowered our budget. So the budget is lowered. We're not paying for the bridge itself, and tolls go away. This is win-win all around. And the most important piece is now truckers who go across that bridge. For those who don't know, if you're going basically along the Eastern Corridor, you have to go through the Bronx and cross the bridges. That's what I-95 goes through. There's $18 per axle. So if you're a truck, that's times 6 for one toll. If you're an owner-operator, meaning you own your own truck and you're just working with somebody, you just gave yourself a raise just by doing that. The average person saves money just by doing that. I help the average person, the working poor, the middle class, the small business owner. I help all three of them. And I lower the budget of the state. And I help out companies that are already dropping billions of dollars on advertising every single year.
So, but that scares the hell out of the government.
It does. Absolutely. Yes, it does. Because they can't, the issue that most people don't realize is tolls and such always go into a slush fund. Right? They always say it goes towards the bridge. And initially it often does. Then they just put it into a slush fund. Our lottery, New York State, was supposed to go for education. Now it's in a slush fund. All the money just goes into slush funds so they can spend it wherever they want. That's how it works every single time. And not sometimes, every single time it begins to go to whatever they said it was going to go. Then they spend too much money because they always spend too much money. And then this goes into a slush fund so they can patch up holes and put Band-Aids on the budget. That's how it always works. And be clear, always. I don't care what state you're in. That's how it works.
Yeah, I found that out firsthand. We have something coming up on the primary ballot for increase of taxes in my county to help pay teachers a raise.
Yep.
I went to one of the meetings and I asked, so when I'm not a Hoosier by birth. I'm a Hoosier by moving here for a job. Mm-hmm. But I've been here 15 years, and I asked one simple question. I was like, well, when I moved here, I understood that there was, we have the lottery here also. We have casinos here also. It says that there was a fund that all the winnings from the lottery were used to pay for education. Is that the case? And the Bartholomew County School Corporation superintendent looked at me and said, I don't know how that works. I just know that we get money.
Yep.
When the superintendent doesn't know, That tells me that the state has put it into that way, as you called it, a slush fund,
You got it.
and you don't really know how much money is going in, but you only know how much is coming out based on how much your county gets.
Yes, it's actually officially called the general fund. That's what it's actually called, but I call it a slush fund.
Yeah.
But it's called the general fund. Yeah,
Right. So
100%.
that's a
So
little bit about your history, Larry. I'm really excited because again, you announced on April 13th, just gosh, I guess that was last week, that you are seeking the Libertarian Party's candidacy for vice president with Judge Jim Gray.
that is
And
correct. I
I,
actually didn't announce it. Reason announced it.
well,
So
well, was that Nick Gillespie? Did he do that?
no, that was Matt Welch.
Matt
Matt
Welsh
Welch
did.
is my
Okay.
friend. He's a buddy of mine. We talked on the phone. It's fine. It was difficult because the timing. He let it out literally a half an hour before I went live on my Sharpe show,
Oh
and wow,
no.
my entire show became about that. So timing wasn't great, Matt. I love you, Matt. Timing was not awesome. But yes, look. He knew. He's also a fellow New Yorker. I mean, he's originally from California, but he lives in New York City right now. He lives in the borough next over. He lives in Brooklyn. I live in Queens.
Mhm.
So we're buddies. It's fine. The timing wasn't great. But yes, that's how it got announced. I am running, and I wasn't planning on running. That's the thing. If I was going to run for anything, I probably would have started running last year.
Mhm.
That's how I did it for when I ran for governor. I ran 9 months before. Is it 9 months? Maybe 9 or 10 months before I even could get officially the nomination. So my goal was to suck up all of the talent, suck up all of the money, suck up all of the press before convention, so there was no chance of anybody beating me. That was my goal, right? And it
Right.
worked. By the time in New York State in 2018 April, I literally had come to the convention already raising six figures in money, already having a statewide campaign, already having a press reel. Like all the press I'd received, I literally played a 12-minute video of all the press I'd gotten. So I wanted to make it so where there was no chance of anybody beating me. And the reason why I was so concerned is, for those who don't know, New York State has a problem with sometimes celebrities deciding they want to come in and be our nominee. A lot of celebrities live in New York City. They will often come up and be like, I'm going to be a governor candidate or something. Howard Stern is the most popular one that did that. But that happens sometimes. So I
Mhm.
wanted to make sure that no celebrity would pop up and go, I'm now going to be a libertarian today. So I decided to make sure I was going to be ready for that. So if I was going to do it for the presidency, the same thing would have happened. I would have started last year to make sure nobody could come in and swoop in and take it from me. But I didn't, because I wasn't planning on running at all. I took a year and a half off to run for governor. And my view has always been the same thing. If you're going to run for major office, you can't have a job. That has to be your job.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not going to make impact. And I literally didn't take a salary for a year and a half. So you can imagine, if you didn't take a salary for a year and a half, what your finances would be like. That's what mine were like.
My
So
wife would kill me.
thank you. So yes. So wife wasn't like, go run again. That was not what she was thinking. She was like, now stay home, make money, goddammit. So that's what she was thinking. So that's what I was doing. And I was planning on that. And then Judge Jim Gray decided he wanted to run because he was supporting Lincoln Chafee, who was
Mhm.
also, for those who don't know, who was also running more as a pragmatic, someone who was a governor, who was a senator, who was a mayor. He dropped out of the race last week or 2 weeks ago. When he dropped out, people were like, Judge, you got to run instead. You got to fill that gap. You have to be the one to take us across the finish line. He thought about it and said, yes, if Larry Sharpe will be my VP. He then came to me and said, Larry, I need you to be my VP so I can do this run. I was surprised. I was not expecting this at all. I was not planning to run at all. And then he's like, I need you to do this. And I said, look, Judge, I love you. If anybody can get me to do it, it's you or Gary Johnson. As I mentioned, my first vote for Libertarian ever was the Johnson Gray ticket in 2012. These are
Yeah.
two men who got me into the Libertarian Party. So I'm very loyal. If Gary Johnson had asked me, I'd have said yes to him too. So I wanted to say yes. So as I went to go talk to my wife about it to see if she'd give me the go ahead on this, I got like 6 or 7 phone calls from people saying, Larry, this is it. We're behind him. We're behind you. You could do this. Larry, we're behind him. And I saw all the support that I got immediately. So I was like, all right, I got to say yes to this. So I said yes. And that's how I began to run.
Well, did you say yes after your wife agreed?
Of course. Yes. I've had my wife for 20 years. I want to keep her for 20 more. So yes, I kind of like her. So I'd like to keep her, and I don't think I would have been able to. She probably would have, packed my bags or packed hers, one or the other, if I had just said yes without telling her.
Right. So, have you changed your political position since 2018, or when people go and look right now and they're like, well, okay, I didn't know who the heck Larry Sharpe was. Sorry, I brought up Gary Johnson there, but who Larry Sharpe is, and they want to look at your 2018 political positions. Have those changed any?
LarrySharpe.com is still there at Sharpe with an E, and the E stands for electable. So LarrySharpe with an E.com. It's there. One of the reasons why people supported me is because in the 2018 elections, some people like Larry, we need to build a policy library. So the policy library is still there. So you just go to LarrySharpe.com/policy. Please, if you're running for office, steal all my policy. And you don't have to give me any credit whatsoever. I don't care. Just take it and go. The goal is for libertarians to have better policies. Right now, any of my policies are obviously New York centric. So you'll have to adjust them, obviously, in your local areas or your states. Certain things won't work, or cultures are different in your state compared to mine. I get it. So shift and adjust as you think appropriate, but feel free to steal all my policy. Happy to do it. In fact, when I was on Joe Rogan actually said at the end of it, he said, Larry, are these policies yours? I'm like, yeah, me and my team put them together. He said, you better lock these things down. I said, why? He said, people will steal them. I said, good, take all of them. I don't have to run anymore. I can go back to work. Please take all of them. So I mean that seriously. If anybody's running who's listening and they, have a question on policy, please take whatever works for you, whatever fits your agenda, please take it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I guess another thing that even though you're a New York City guy, um, you help, as you said, you've had people from other states call you up in regards to politics, but also I'm sure that you have friends all over the country that probably just ask for your business advice. So how do you, being that you really you focused your leadership training on the that post-industrial leadership that you talked about earlier, and you know a lot about that. So are you getting a lot of good ideas from people from other states that are allowing you to hone your skills as who you are now?
Not really, no. I don't mean this in a negative way, but I've been doing this now. I've been a consultant, teacher, executive coach. I've been an officer in a public company twice. I've taught at the Ivy League schools twice. Teach now still at colleges here locally. Been doing this 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
So no, what I'm doing, I've been through enough. So most people aren't calling me to teach me anything. Most of them are asking for my advice on something I've been through. I've also had many failed businesses and successful businesses. So I've already been through the failure side also.
Mm-hmm.
I was devastated in the 2009 crash. So I think I've been through a lot of stuff that people are going through. Changing jobs, building businesses. I was a Marine, a teacher, entrepreneur, sales rep, all those different things. So as a general rule, people are calling me because they're looking for some advice on something.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to give it whenever I can. I spend a lot of time, as you know, doing podcasts, answering questions. I take phone calls. I do Ask Me Anything every Monday night on my show, The Sharpe Way. By the way, sharpeway.com. Please enjoy. I do that, all the time. So most people are asking me for advice. The people, when I get advice, is I have a team still from my time as running for governor, and the team I put together, I'm still with. Like a lot of people who are on my social media team are still with me. My marketing team is still with me. My policy team is still with me. So when I have issues and concerns, literally, people ask me all the time, Larry, how do you find your news? And very often it's someone from my team will reach out to me and say, hey, check this out. Look at this. Look at that. We should talk about this. Talk about that. And they'll reach out to me either via email or text or something and say, this is an issue. And I go, oh my God, yeah, it is. And then we'll have like a half an hour call about it so I can be up to speed on what's going on. So
Mm-hmm.
I've kept my advisors close to me. There's no way I can, be aware of everything. I'm just one person. It's impossible. But again, as I mentioned for leadership, good leadership is not, I'll do it all. Good leadership is motivating people to do what they feel is appropriate. The people that are in my world still, I go out of my way to give them the leadership that they say, you know what? I care. This is my job. I'm responsible. I will reach out to Larry Sharpe when I think I need something, and they take advantage of it. That's the goal. I'm trying to practice what I preach, right?
Right.
I'm trying to be the I want. I'm not trying to force my leadership on you. I hope that through my example and through my community, you will decide that it's the right thing, and I hope you'll decide to copy it. That's the goal. So as I build more of it, I hope people begin to follow that. I don't want to tell people everything to do. I want them to realize this matters and to come to me when they know it matters. And so far, it's been working for me. I've not been caught, as the saying is, I haven't been caught flat-footed on any issue, because as issues pop up, the people in my world reach out to me and go, hey, this is an issue. Let's have a call. That happens literally weekly.
Right. So I also saw out of the corner of my eye last night as I was talking to my wife, and saw that you are going to be involved in the presidential debate tomorrow for the Libertarian Party of Kentucky.
I am.
And I'm very excited about that. And I want to
Hold on. I'm involved.
It had your picture on there.
Did it?
It was a president. Are you involved?
I don't think so. I'm not running for president.
Well, but I think it was president and vice president debate. Are you doing a debate tomorrow?
I'm not.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's just Judge Jim.
Okay.
Well, I think what it did was it had it had a picture of Joe Jorgensen, and it had a picture of Judge Gray, and then it for some reason I saw it was like all the presidential candidates were on the left-hand side of the photograph, and then it had Kentucky Libertarian Party presidential debate, and on the right-hand side I saw your picture, and I was like, wow, is he involved in a debate tomorrow?
No, I don't debate libertarians.
Talk to me about that.
Why would I? We're all gonna be buddies in 2 months. Why would I be debating you? Why am I going to get into a world where I can call you names and say you're no good, and then a month later go vote for this guy? Why would I do that? I've been in this party running for things for 16 years. I've never debated libertarians.
That's very interesting, based on how our quote unquote the American two-party system works.
Yeah, it's terrible. I don't do it. I've been involved since 2016. I don't debate libertarians. I'll have an open conversation with them anytime, any day of the week, all the time. In fact, I'm having Spike Cohen on my show on Friday so that we can talk it out. I'm happy to have a conversation with any libertarian, anytime, open, public. I'm happy to. But why would I be yelling at Spike if a month from now I'm going to be supporting him as a VP? Right. What if he wins?
Exactly.
And I'm going to sit there and call him all kind of names, and then a month, but I was kidding. You can see it happen with the Democrats and Republicans all the time. Right. They debate each other throughout the entire primary system, and then have to, eat crow and say, yeah, well, he's better than the other guy. Why would I want to do that? I don't do that. No one's ever seen me. I mean, I debated in 2016 because Bill Weld was running for the vice presidency with me. Bill Weld wasn't a libertarian. I don't have a problem doing that. That's the only time I've ever debated libertarians. That's it.
Right.
It's the only time. Otherwise, I don't do it. And people ask me all the time. People ask me to debate all the time, like monthly. Why don't you debate this guy, debate that guy? I always say no. I'm not going to debate people who I'm going to be supporting in a month from now.
So, but something like the Soho Forum you would do if you would debate on a specific issue if a question came up. No, you wouldn't even do the Soho Forum.
They ask me all the time. No. You think the Soho Forum is in my city, and yet I have never debated there. You think they haven't asked me?
I'm sure they ask you weekly now.
Yeah, and I don't do it. Why in the world would I insult a fellow libertarian who I probably agree on 90% of what they think about, 10% I don't, and I'm going to act like they're an idiot or they're stupid or be mean to them? Why?
Oh, no, I see. I look at the Soho Forums differently. I look at the Soho Forums as a way to, just like debate used to be in high school, is you debate your position, and not saying that the other position is wrong or bad. It's just you're debating your.
So then let's have a conversation instead. That's what I do. If you notice, I go live, 8 times a week, give or take now? Mm-hmm. I talk about all kind of stuff. I have lots of people on my shows all the time. I've had Democrats on my show. I've had Republicans on my show. I don't debate them. I talk. I don't want debates. I don't want arguments, because then there's winners and losers. I want conversations, lots of them. I don't want to fight the left. I don't want to fight the right. I want to convert the left. I want to convert the right. And you convert them by talking to them, not by fighting with them. Wow, I made you quiet.
I know, because as expected, Larry, you have brought thought-provoking issues to this podcast. You have made me think. You have made me consider you for the candidacy. I'm excited by what you brought up, and excited by the demeanor you have and the things that you bring up. It's a breath of fresh air that I think that people need to hear, because it's counterproductive to what they're used to hearing and seeing, and that's what
true.
excites me.
That is very true. Yes, yeah, that's very true. Absolutely, very true. Remember something: if you do what everyone else does, you will probably fail, because most people fail.
Very true. Very true. Yep. So, well, we're about at the end of our time, Larry. If there's anything you'd like to say in closing, again, we've talked about Larry Sharpe with an E.com and
The Sharpe Way. Yes,
the Sharpe Way
is my show. Yes,
and you've got swag, which I got to tell you, there's nothing that gets closer to my heart than someone that has their own swag, including golf balls.
Yes, absolutely.
That is something that I'm missing right now, is golf.
Golf balls, sweatshirts, cups, the whole deal. You see, whenever I'm on my show, I'm wearing my Sharpe Way shirt with my Sharpe Way mug. Absolutely, mugs, the whole deal. Yes, if you want some cool swag, please grab it. Happy to jump on board. And if you want to see what's going on with the Gray Sharpe campaign, it's graysharp2020.com. We're starting to get up, rock and rolling. We're a little bit slow, but we will eventually be up, rocking and rolling.
All right. This has been the Milibertian Podcast with Paul Shin as host and our special guest, Mr. Larry Sharpe. Thanks you very much, Larry. Have a great day.
All righty, you too.